Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to style forms and counters in CSS. First, let's create some inputs so we can interact with them. Here in our CSS file, I'm gonna select our inputs, and I'm gonna select all of them with our tag selector. Let's say we want to change the width of it. Of course, we can do it with property and give this, for example, 100% of width. Now you'll see it is 100% in width. Of course, you can make this anything that you want, or maybe you want this to be not dynamic and static. You can do them either. And we have this height element that you can choose. For example, 100 pixel should look like this. Another thing that we can change is how to inside up our input looks like. For example, here, if I write, you see now I have some spaces above and below my text. So I'm gonna use attribute selectors right here, that if you haven't watched last video, I'm gonna give the link of that so you can watch and learn all about attribute selectors. So here I use type is equal to text. Now instead of these, for example, let's say we want to change the background. Let's write test right here, okay? To change this, we use simple background color property and give this what background that we want. And now you see we have this background right here. And of course, we can change the color of our text here. For example, let's make that white. Now you see it's white as we type. Another thing that we can change is how to our box show. You know already we can use margin in both sides, for example, 10 pixel and 20 pixels, but we can have padding that it is the space between this text and the container itself. For example, if we have padding of 10 pixels right here, you can see now we have 10 pixel gap right here and here. And you see that we have border right here. Of course, we can change that with our border property. So let's say we don't want any borders here. You'll see now we got that with no border until I select the input. And you know the border radius that I think we have covered that we can use, for example, 30 pixels right here. Actually, border radius. Yeah, now you see we have this type of shape that we can, or maybe 10 pixel is good in this case. Okay. Now, if we want to change the values when we focus on this, we're going to use some pseudo elements. So I write my selector right here with the type of text, actually type, and then here I use double column and then write the focus. And now if I say, for example, make the background color in this mode red, you see if I focus on this input, I get the red background right here. And of course, you can change all of the other values that we covered right here. And just like this, we can use text areas. For example, here, let's say instead of these, that we actually didn't use these. Let's say we have text area, and let's say we have some text right here. Okay, now here, if we select our text area, we can, for example, give this a padding of 20 pixels, background of, let's say, some dark gray, something like this, and make the color white. Now you see we have this text area that we can interact with. And after these, let's say we have some select menus in our code. So we have this select here, And inside this, we have options, let's say BMW, Ford, and Dodge. Now you'll see we have this simple select menu right here. But if we select that here, we can do, for example, let's say we can change the width of that, for example, to 100% right here. And after this, let's say we want text align to be center. And we want, when we hover on this, the background will be black and our text color is gonna be white. So here is how it's going to show to us. Let me delete all of this, so we go to next part. Let's say here we have some H3 tags with programming language inside them. Here we have JS, here we have C, Java, and C++, for example. Now, if we want to make these something like list and count them, we can do this with ordered list and OL tag. But another way to do that is we can use our CSS to create our counter. So we say inside of our body, we want to create a counter for this page. So here we're gonna type counter reset, and after this we select our H3 tags, and after this we are going to use our pseudo element of before, and inside this we're gonna type counter-increment and set this to section again, and here we're gonna use the content that we want to show in our counter. For example, let's say we want T before each of these. You see now we have this T right here, but you might say that we don't need any of this, that if I comment this out, we still have this T. Yes, but if we want to add something like number to this, we are going to use this counter, and then inside these parentheses, we're gonna type that what we have defined above there. For example, if here I say section, you'll see now we have T1, T2, T3, and T4. Now let's say we have some spaces here too. Yes, this is looking good. So what this means is we have created something like here, some variable, some numbers that it has resetted right here. And we name that number section. After this, we go along our code, and wherever we see counter-increment, we're gonna add 1 to the previous number and save that. And in the content part, we are going to have this counter section that is going to show what our section number is. For example, let's say after this, we have another H2 tag, says C#. Now here, if I select our H2 tag and use before pseudo element, and here I use the same content, and let's say we want our counter of section. You'll see now here, actually let's make this just like this, and instead of T, let's say language, yes, language 1 to 3, and let's have this here too. Now, as you see, we have language which is static value from here before each H3 element, and after that we have this number, this increment thing because of our counter right here. And it's gonna increment every time, but here, because we don't have increment in our H2, you see that it's only showing the same 3 that we have here in third H3. So if we have this one here too, now you see we have 3, 4, and 5. And if you switch the place of these, let's put the semicolon right here. Now you'll see we have the same result right here. But here, let's say, instead of incrementing that, we want to reset that. What this does is basically when our code reaches this section, when our code reaches this part, which in the CSS, we have this counter reset, it's gonna make the value of this section to 0. So here, if I have another counter increment, you see now it starts from 1. Now let's say here we have all of these right here, make all of them H3. And here, let's say we have another H3. Let's say we have PHP. And let's now have another H3 here, says C language. Actually, I forgot the N right here. Yes. Now let's make these H4 instead of H3. Okay. Now we want to count all of the top things right here. Let's say we have something like nested things going on right here. So we have this top items, and then we have this sub items inside of it. So how we're gonna count these separately and these ones separately? So here we're gonna select our body, and inside this we are going to use counter reset and set some name. For example, here I'm gonna use head titles right here. Now we select our H3 tags and use our pseudo element of before. And here we use counter increment and use the head titles right here. And now in the content, let's say counter, which is head titles, and then after this, let's say we have double columns right here. Now you'll see we have selected all of our H3 elements and give these some counters. And now for using our second layer of counting, which starts inside of this head titles. For example, let's say we have another H4 for JS. I know this is not another language, but let's say we have React here and Vue right here. Because we want it to start every time inside of our head titles, so this should be 1, 2, and again when we reach here, we want this to reset here and start again from 1 and 2 and 3 and go ahead. So here in H3, we're gonna select our H3, and here we use counter reset of subtitles. And now here, if we use H4 with the pseudo element of before, here we can use counter increment and use the subtitles. Now here, if I use my content and I want the subtitles here, now you'll see we have, let's actually make this a little more readable. Okay, now you'll see we have this one, then React, Vue, which is inside of JavaScript. Then we have Java. Then inside C language, we have the normal C, C#, and C++, which index separately from all of these things. And our subtitle variable counter has resetted after each section. And we have subtitle counter 0 in every H3 element. And we can use both of them right here to have better view. So here I'm gonna use counter, and this time here I'm gonna use head titles here, and then after this I want hyphen and then the child of it. And let's say we want margin left of 50 pixels. Now you'll see we have this counter which stays here and sub counters right here. And we have the same thing going on here too. Please give a like and subscribe to catch next videos.